Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the Online Ocean Symposium. Sorry about the delay, we had a couple of technical difficulties, but let's just get going. On this special episode, we will be joining Fabien Cousteau as he spends 31 days underwater as part of Mission 31. He's actually live right now at the Mission Aquarius Reef base off the coast of Florida. Also joining the conversation will be a few other underwater workers to highlight their projects and discuss the importance of underwater work. Before we dive into the conversation, I'd like to remind those of you watching at home that you can always ask us and the panel a question through the Google Plus Hangout application. With that, I'd like to introduce the star of the show, Fabien Cousteau.
Thank you so much, Andrew. It's great to be here, and amongst my oceanic peers and friends. Some of us have met, some of us are new friends, but this is an amazing topic, and look at this. We're talking from the bottom of the sea. How amazing is that?
That's pretty amazing. I would be lying if I said that I wasn't jealous and wanted to be down there myself. So you are the grandson of the mythical Jacques Cousteau and an all-around awesome guy. This expedition, Mission 31, what is the goal of it? What are you trying to find out? What are you trying to do with the actual dive? What is the purpose?
Well, Mission 31 has set out on three parallel goals, symbiotic goals. First of all, we're doing a lot of science with some aspiring and young scientists, two from FIU, one from MIT, and one from Northeastern. And what we're setting out to do, of course, is to collect more data and science around climate change-related issues, especially as it relates to our undersea cities, the coral reefs, pollution issues, both organic fertilizer, or organic, so fertilizers, and chemical, man-made chemical pollutants, again, as it pertains to those underwater cities. And lastly, predator-prey behavior, which can be documented through various ways, including, of course, the traditional with the feeding behavior of herbivores and their risk-taking factor as they get closer to predator areas, as well as underwater holographic sonars, if you will, or video sonars, which gives us a video image through sound, which is pretty amazing because that allows us to see in the dark, so to speak, or to see when we're not around without any light. We're going to be using a little bit later on some ROVs. We have a red Epic Dragon camera, which is the latest in sensor technology. It's a 6K camera that shoots 9 times HD resolution, so we can bring back a documentary that would hopefully honor the World Without Sun, that Oscar-winning show that my grandfather did some 50 years ago. So in all, and most importantly, I think the education platform is probably paramount. So doing things like what we're doing today with you, we do regular Skype sessions, Google Hangouts, we talk to media live from beneath the sea to tie in the importance of the oceans as it pertains to the average person. Not everyone's a scientist, but everyone should be concerned about the health of the oceans, because a healthy ocean is a healthy people. This is our circulatory system, and we know so little about it. We've explored less than 5% of our oceans to date. I'm happy to see that there are some intrepid explorers on our panel today, and hopefully they can give us their insight into why they're doing it. But I know for me, it's not only a legacy, but it's mainly a passion. I was never forced into this, but it's impossible to turn your back on the oceans once you see its majesty, its beauty, its mysteries. And if you're at all curious, those mysteries are so ever tantalizing that I can't wait to see what's around that next coral head.
That's a fantastic way of putting it. You mentioned in what you were just mentioning a couple of this 3D sonar video. I was wondering if you could also speak to what other technologies you are using, like especially highlighting our, as you mentioned, our underwater cities, the coral reefs. Are there any new technologies to study those fragile ecosystems?
There are a lot of new technologies. The problem is financing. So a lot of times we're bereft of technologies, whether it's in universities or in scientific institutions or even as explorers, simply by the fact that there's just no budget for it. And that's a big problem. We saw this with the latest crash or disappearance of Flight 370 and how difficult that is to solve, that mystery. We also realized how much trash was in the oceans during this time. These are all topics that oceanic experts have been talking about for decades. My grandfather was talking about it back at the Rio Summit in 1992. He was talking about it decades prior to that. But the realizations now, because of our the ease of use of having communications devices in our hands, of getting that kind of information, has brought to light the realities that our oceans are not as healthy as we had hoped or as we had dreamed, and certainly need our help, both on an education level for the general public and also for better decision making, whether it's in our households or in our governments. Technology, we use everything from the simplest of GoPros all the way on up to those red Epic Dragon cameras to a fluorometer, which is based on light and gets the fluorescence of corals and calculates that coral head's health. It's a non-invasive technique of doing that. I'm looking over here because I'm looking at our array of technologies, and I'm looking at my scientist to make sure that he's nodding, okay, you're doing okay. But we're using, amongst other things, a Godson handheld sonar system, which is basically looks like a giant, ray gun, but it allows us to, in the dark, have a heads-up display and see, quite literally see, through that heads-up display what's around us without any light. And that gives us the opportunity to identify fish species or animal species in the area, as well as do fish counts and so on and so forth. And of course, all the pragmatic reasons. Hey, Adam. So basically, the list goes on, and I can bore you to tears for the next half an hour on what other things we have. But basically, that's the reason for the importance of exploring our oceans and using new technologies to do so, whether it's to find a missing plane or to find the next species or even the next possible cure for cancer.
Wow, that's a lot of possibilities. One thing that I would love to ask about is you mentioned education. You mentioned your Skype in the classroom, that sort of thing. Can you speak on how that's been received and how the public has been receiving your mission?
Well, it's a double-edged sword, but I wanted to make sure that for the first time ever on a Cousteau expedition, we invited the world in real time. So you can check us out online, of course, on mission-31.com and see the live cameras. You can see us eating all sorts of freeze-dried foods, just like you can watch us go diving. We have helmet cams and everything else. So the point being that, in today's society, in order to be a storyteller, you have to use tools at hand that people are used to. And we're spoiled now. We have all sorts of stimuli in our lives, and we need to be able to use those to leverage the attention of the average person that otherwise would never get a chance to do what we do. And that's really important. It's really important not because we need to bolster ourselves about it, but because what's out there has everything to do with our very own livelihood, whether it's economic, our health, the health of our kids, or even the future of our species.
So you are currently underwater at the Mission Aquarius Reef Base, or the Aquarius Reef Base. There was a little bit of a hubbub a little bit ago that the base was actually going to lose its funding. Can you speak a little bit to that and how Mission 31 came about in regards to the base itself?
Well, I've always wanted to have the opportunity to saturate and become an aquanaut and live underwater because I find this to be a very unique platform. And, there are different tools for different reasons. This is one of those tools that allows us to go deeper, longer, and further in some of these oceanic endeavors, especially as it pertains to science and education. The Aquarius is the only undersea marine laboratory in the world. There used to be in the 60s and 70s a dozen or so out there at any given time, and in the 80s and 90s they all started shutting down. And most of them actually were just purpose-built for one specific mission. The Aquarius Reef, the Aquarius was about to shut down 2 years ago, and thanks to the efforts of many people, both inside and outside government, including Dr. Sylvia Earle and many others. And as a matter of fact, Megan went down to visit Sylvia during Mission Aquarius, and as did I and several others who supported her endeavor. She and others were able to highlight the importance of Aquarius and give it a state of execution. Since then, Florida International University has taken up the operations of Aquarius, and it looks like it is now on a path to a much brighter future. But that's just step one. For me, I look at this as an amazing platform, but why is it the only one? And what's in the future? What else? What other habitats can we build? What other underwater villages, may they be stationary or mobile, can we have in different parts of the world so that we can have a network out there to really share in that amazing way to explore our oceanic environment?
That would be a fantastic future. Before I throw it to the next guest, you mentioned various other underwater habitats. Two of those, I believe, were actually created and were the brainchild of your grandfather. The Conch Shelf 1 and 2, I believe. You are going underwater for 31 days. Your grandfather was underwater at 30 feet for 30 days. I can't help but notice a crossover. Is your dive and mission partially an homage or tribute to your grandfather?
Well, you're right. I mean, the Mission 31 has for a baseline Conch Shelf 2, where my grandfather and his team stayed in the Red Sea at 2 atmospheres for 30 days. Actually, there was a deep habitat within Conch Shelf 2 that went down to 100 meters, where two of those aquanauts stayed for over a week. But the idea really is that next extra day was added in there, not only for a full lunar cycle, which is very pragmatic on a scientific level, but also to pay tribute to my grandfather, his team, and the aquanauts that have since come and allowed us an insight in how to live underwater and how amazing that is. We, I believe, are in a dawn of Aquarius, no pun intended. But there's becoming a sense, in my opinion, and maybe I'm completely delusional, but I feel like there's a sense of traction that we're starting to get with regard to attention to the oceans, and we can't lose that rare opportunity because we can't afford to turn our backs anymore on the oceans. We have probably about a decade left in order to change the course that we've set for ourselves with regard to the health of our planet.
That is some very, very poignant words, and I hope that we can all come together as a species to actually have an effect. Next, I'd love to throw it over to Megan Cook, a 3-time visitor to the symposium. Welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here with everyone and chatting about such an exciting topic.
Again, great to have you here. You work with Bob Ballard, and for I Am Water. In the past, you have been an ocean ambassador and a Rolex ocean scholar. Can you describe the work you're currently doing?
Absolutely. I like to sum up all those different roles by saying I'm an ocean enthusiasm volcano, I guess you could say. I started as a scientist with a background in coral reef studies and in studying how humans and oceans interact around the world. I love science. I love asking new questions and diving deeper into that. But as I started more and more science, I realized that what I was truly most passionate about was helping other people get as excited about oceans as I was. And so that's led me to working with a lot of people, a lot of great ocean explorers who are pushing forward those boundaries. As Fabien said, we have 95% of our ocean left to explore, and that means we need a lot of people involved in that work. And so I've been thrilled to work with the Ocean Exploration Trust, Dr. Bob Ballard, who is working on the deep sea, those dark, deep places of our planet where very few people have visited. The chance to be out there as a science communication fellow. They stream using submersibles, deep ROVs, robots basically on the seafloor, and they stream that live to the internet so people can be part of that deep sea exploration. On the other end of the scale, up from deep, dark oceans, I also am thrilled to be working with the I Am Water Ocean Conservation Trust, and we believe in ocean conservation through human experience, and that means getting kids salty in the ocean. We can know as much as a scientific community as there is to know. Keep asking those new questions, but until those next generations are excited and enlivened and engaged with our oceans so that they are interested and care about those scientific results and care about making a positive change for our ocean, we're not really moving forward as a group. And so we're thrilled to work with adults and kids around the world and take people into the ocean, give them a personal experience, and help them understand why we're so crazy about those blue parts of the planet.
That's fantastic. How can people at home get involved with I Am Water?
I Am Water is beginning our global movement right now. We are expanding out around the globe. The easiest way to connect with us is on social media right now. On Facebook at I Am Water Trust, and also on Twitter at I Am Water Trust. You can check it out right down there. We're founded in South Africa. That's where we began. So founded by Hanley Prinsloo, a world champion free diver, a South African record-holding free diver. And we realized that free diving, just putting your face in the water, taking a big breath, and exploring the world on one breath is a great tool to introduce kids to the ocean. It's that, the gateway, I guess, to the rest of the ocean. And so we've started working in South Africa. I'm in Bermuda right now running a program here, and we're continuing out around the world as we go. So if you're not in South Africa or Bermuda, join us on social media now and keep your eyes peeled because we'll be in your country soon.
Fantastic. We've got a little bit of time to run through a lot of people, so I'm going to ask you one quick question. You, as mentioned before, I've been to Mission Aquarius. You were at Mission Aquarius at the Aquarius Reef base. Any advice for Fabien while he's down there?
There's lots. Be ready for people to watch what you're eating. The live cam is a lot of fun for people around the world, I think, to know what it's like, a day in the life, because that's the piece people forget about. Science is cool, counting things is cool, but everyone wants to know what you eat, what kind of fish you saw, how do you sleep at night, and so I love that you've got the live feed cameras there, and I hope you're ready to have inquisitive minds from all over the world. Ooh, green beans. Nice.
Oh, look, nice. I actually have to admit that during your talk, Fabien, I kind of was watching in the background. We had a couple of visitors of the fishy variety. But moving along, I would love to introduce Amber and Emily, who are working on a project known as Rigs to Reef. If you guys could say hi, I'd love that.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you so much for having us. I'm Amber, and this is Emily.
Hi.
And we're graduate students at Scripps Institution of Oceanography. And for our capstone/thesis project, we've been diving on active offshore oil and gas platforms and exploring their potential to function as artificial reefs.
And how have you been seeing that? How is there actually a benefit to these rigs? Are they actually usable as a habitat for reefs?
Oh, definitely. It's been an adventure because you look at the surface and you see all the steel and the beams, and that's what everybody on the beach sees. So we've been focusing on taking people underwater with us to see hundreds of anemones and brittle stars and rockfish, sea lions. These things are covered. There is not a foot of space that's free on these platforms.
That's fantastic. In fact, if people are at home, you can watch your Instagram, watch your various feeds, and see all sorts of amazing photos. I have a couple here if you can talk us through a couple of these.
Sure.
So what am I looking at right here?
All right, so this is a dive photo. One of us, I think that's me right there, going down. And it's crazy because once we rolled off the boat and we were diving on this platform, it was as if we were free floating through the skeleton of an Empire State Building. But it was interesting because this skeleton wasn't dead at all. It was full of life. And I know this is sort of a shadowed picture. You can't see all the fish and anemone and life that was surrounding these platforms, but it was truly amazing.
And it looks like from the surface, this is what you would normally see.
Yes.
Is this a fully operational rig?
It is, yes. They all the rigs that we've dove on so far are operational rigs. Sometimes they might shut them down for a few months if it's not economic to keep running it, but for the most part, they're all actively drilling or transporting oil back onto shore.
Wow. And so down there you see all these types of fish that I'm seeing, various other animals as well. Look at that guy.
Yeah, sea lion giving us a peek.
They're really, the rigs, the best part about them is the rockfish population use them as a spawning ground. They have a unique life cycle where the mussels and shells on the surface that get consumed by brittle stars and other things rain down to the bottom and create these enormous shell mounds up to 30 feet high. And the fish love to spawn them and have spawn around
I'll go in Roger's office.
There and growing there and seeking shelter amongst the mussels. So it's a very unique life cycle that takes place there.
And there is this both of you right here?
It is, yes.
Who's taking the picture? So with your project specifically, what benefits have you seen for you actually being able to share these photos with the population? What type of reaction have you been getting?
We've gotten a very positive reaction, and the most important thing is to educate people about the ocean and get them excited and interested so that they care. Because as Sylvia Earle so famously said, with knowing comes caring, and with caring there's hope for the future of the ocean. So we're really just trying to inspire people and get them interested.
That's fantastic, and it's really great to hear that you're getting such great, response from the public. What's the next step for this project?
We have the opportunity to go diving on Eureka, Ellie, and Ellen, as well as the Olympus II, which is the sunken ship. So that will be our next project, and this will be interesting because it'll give us the opportunity to compare two different types of artificial reefs. A sunken ship that's only on one level of the bottom of the ocean versus a structure that's Eureka, which is the largest one off of California. So stretching all the way to the bottom to the top. So it'll be a really interesting comparison to show people the differences in artificial reefs and what artificial reefs have to offer.
That's fantastic. I am always going to be following what you guys are doing and broadcasting it everywhere. Not only because, but mainly because the photos are just ridiculously gorgeous.
Well, thanks. People should follow us. It's Rig2Reef Explorers on Instagram. Our website is rig2reefexploration.org.
I'm sure everybody at home is going to be jumping right there just to make those their desktops. While we are here, I'd love to throw it over to Thomas Potts, who just joined us. Thomas, welcome. Oh, and I can't hear you.
Oh, let's see.
Oh, there we go. Try now?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, great. So, you are the Aquarius Reef-based director. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do on a day-to-day basis?
What we do on a day-to-day basis. Right now we are, as you can tell, and Fabien's smiling, for the last about 6 months we've been preparing for Mission 31. While Mission 31 has consumed a lot of what we're doing, both operationally and administratively, and developing a science plan, Mission 31 is hopefully just a start of what we're going to continue to do. So just, I believe yesterday, the general public got an announcement that we have 2 NASA NEMO missions. One starting in July, the other one starting in September. We do have another Navy mission. So the great thing about Mission 31 and what Fabien's doing right now is it's sort of serving as this catalyst. So I am really anticipating that once we come out of set with Fabien, that already the interest is growing by the day, our phone is ringing off the hook on people who want to potentially do something with Aquarius. So, you know, that's what we do. Half our team is dedicated completely to operations. The other half is dedicated to ensuring that the operations folks have something to do the rest of this year and into the future.
Most definitely. Yeah, Fabien actually got to speak to a little bit about how the Reef base was set to be shut down. Could you elaborate a little bit on that? How did it come to be part of the university?
Absolutely. In 2012, we were zeroed out in the president's budgets. We were exclusively funded by NOAA, National Oceanographic Oceanographic Administration. We were part of the National Undersea Research Program, and that program sunset, like many federal programs do, reached the end of its life cycle, and they had slated it to be terminated. And that is when a handful of people got together. Fabien was one of them, Sylvia Earle, Mark Patterson, and we got together in March of 2012, and we decided that, you know what, our fate can't be dictated by, the priority shift within Congress, within federal government. So we pulled together, and what we did in 2012 is launch this Mission Aquarius, which was 5 days of just intense activity. Press went through the roof. What it did there, that served as a catalyst. It really piqued Florida International University's interest. So Florida International, we had been courting them as a potential partner for a while. They have a number of marine scientists that have used Aquarius, and we thought this would be a great partner. When we were zeroed out in the president's budget, that talk turned from, would you like to become a partner, to would you like to become a potential operator of Aquarius? So after Mission Aquarius in 2012, a series of meetings met. The university sort of tiptoed into it in early 2013, still working through the whole logistics of assuming a program as big as Aquarius, the potential liability, we were actually morphing from this federal funding model into a sort of a day rate model that would allow us to continue to do great science, but match it up with potential donors, film companies, industry, everybody, so everybody would have a stake in the project and then ultimately get something out of it. So as we saw in 2012, we were slowly just weaned a little bit off of the NOAA money. It is still currently owned by NOAA for the next month or so. That's the word we're getting. So we are going to be completely self-sufficient, self-funded.
That's fantastic. So,
and Andrew, can I jump in here for a second? Something that I think the listeners might want to know is, for 6 aquanauts down below at Aquarius, there's a huge support system topside. Tom and Roger and their team, as well as the Navy guys who are helping ensure that, of course, Aquarius is safe and sound, and the aquanauts within it are doing their utmost, their jobs and everything else. So it's obviously a very large partnership endeavor, and just like NASA, when you have a launch and you have astronauts in outer space, here we have aquanauts in inner space. You have a huge support system that makes sure that everything goes just right.
That's great, Fabien. Last count we had, it was 35 support people.
Wow, that's a huge team.
It is a gigantic team, and most of them are here on a volunteer status. People want to be part of this, and we're very fortunate to have very talented people who are very passionate about seeing this project through and the future of Aquarius.
Well, it seems that Aquarius is important not just as a scientific reef base, but as you mentioned, there's going to be a training operation down there for NASA, for astronauts as well. It brings a great perspective for the public, this ocean-human connection. Where do you see the Aquarius base going from here, from post-Mission 31?
Right. So, the people are familiar with the Aquarius sort of, pre-2012. It was funded with almost a singular mission. It was to support marine ecosystem science. That was its mission, and when it did it very well. However, it did it in a vacuum, unfortunately. And as funding started to become tenuous towards the end of the federal grant, nobody knew about it. So, you know, we had a number of ideas throughout the years of how could we increase the, it was almost like Aquarius was exclusive. There were only a limited number of people who could actually participate in it. And everybody who was associated with Aquarius says, you know, that model doesn't work. We need to be inclusive. We got to find ways, even if they don't physically dive on Aquarius, we've got to find ways to connect people so that they feel a part of this mission. So what Fabien's doing as part of Mission 31 is really what he's doing, and I gotta tell you, Fabien, I was a little bit skeptical on saying, wow, we are really going out on a limb with some of these things. Just, you know, it's sort of veered away from our marine ecosystem science approach. But I honestly have to tell you, it has been tremendous. The people that have come in to visit you and the people that have been interacting at the reef base have been tremendous, and it opened my eyes that somebody like Ian Somerhalder, you know, who I viewed as just as an actor, was really passionate about the oceans and about ways to engage students. So, you know, we started to venture into that arena. What I think Mission 31 did, you know, and thanks to Fabien, is sort of open everybody's eyes to the fact that, hey, let's kick open the doors. People, let's make this as inclusive as possible. Let's continue to do rigorous science. But there is no reason that we can't include an artist, a musician, somebody who can reach the masses that traditional marine ecosystem science can't. I really think that's going to be the future of future Aquarius operations. You know, you'll always have your Nemo and Navy that are very scripted, but I think in the future the science and the education type projects are going to be multidisciplinary and include non-traditional users.
Well, we'll definitely be looking out for those projects in the future. It sounds like there's a lot to see on the horizon.
Well, Tom, sorry, Andrew, I'm cutting you off for 1 second again. Tom, thank you for saying that. But basically, that's what all these people on this panel are guilty of, if you will. They're amazing people that can bring in non-traditional crowds, and thanks to your efforts, Tom, and your group, and all these people on this panel, we're going to be able to make a big difference for the oceans.
I'm very glad that you chimed in with that. That is a fantastic sentiment. While I have the chance, I'd love to throw it over to our final guest, Lloyd Godson from Australia, who's really early to join us today. You are a self-described aquanaut and do quite a bit of different interesting projects underwater. Can you tell us a bit about how you got into this type of work?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. My adventure basically started back in 2005 with Australian Geographic Society. They held a competition over here in their magazine to live your dream. And at that time, my dream was to live underwater, and so I submitted this idea and ended up winning it was a $50,000 sponsorship prize through the magazine. And with that money, I went away and built my own underwater habitat out of recycled steel. I submerged it in a quarry here in Australia and spent 12 days living underwater, which was quite an experience. I had a solar array on the surface which powered my habitat and a pedal-powered generator underwater. And I had 6 kids from America flew out to Australia with their teacher and built me a algae bioreactor as a life support system, which was quite rudimentary, but you know, it was all about engaging kids in science, and it was quite a fascinating project. That led to a second project in Germany. I did an underwater habitat at Legoland. I chose this location because I wanted to make it accessible to children so that kids could come in and see an underwater habitat through the glass, interact with an aquanaut, ask him what it's like to live underwater, see what I eat, see how I go to the toilet. And I spent 14 days in that small red box. It was about 4 square meters of floor space. I also broke a Guinness World Record in that habitat. I generated 2,500 watt-hours of electricity using human power. So yeah, it was quite an amazing adventure. It was broadcast through National Geographic City Under the Sea documentary. And that's led me to where I am now, doing my third underwater habitat project here. I'm going to be doing that in Sydney next year, in Darling Harbour. This time I'm taking it a step further. I'm actually going to have kids build me the underwater habitat themselves. So I've got a design which is being completed through N55 in Denmark. They've designed a sphere of hexagons that weld together. So the kids are going to cut that out on their CNC machine at school and then weld that up. I've got some local companies who are going to support them in that, and then ship it down to the Australian Maritime Museum in Darling Harbour and spend about a month living underwater communicating with kids from my little sphere. So it's been a fun journey, and it continues. So yeah,
that last project that you just described is an amazing way to get people involved, actually building the habitat you're going to be staying in. I have to say that all of these projects that we're hearing about shows, and as Fabien mentioned, a great way to bridge the gap between the science, the actual experience of going out there, and the people at home. Lloyd, I'd love to hear from you. Throughout your journey, what type of reaction have you been getting from, say, the public or from the people you have reached out to and touched through your projects?
Yeah, that's the first project I did. That was quite a surprise. In the beginning, it was very quiet media-wise. No one really knew about the project. I'd involved some local schools who were very active in getting involved in the project. By the time I actually went to living underwater, it was, you know, I had helicopters coming to land to interview me, and it was just, yeah, it was just really boomed from there. At Legoland, we had about 100,000 kids come through in 2 weeks to see the project, which sort of shows the interest in this kind of adventure. It also went on to win a PR prize in Germany. It was second behind BMW or something like that. So, I mean, this just shows on a shoestring budget the impact you can have through projects like this. And I mean, my projects are completely different to the one that Fabien's doing, in that, you know, my budgets are something around $50,000 mark. But it shows that if you bring the community together and you have a, you know, it might be a bold vision, but together you can achieve that and have some pretty outstanding results. And I've had some pretty great support from places like Australian Geographic, who realise the value in bringing up the next generation of explorers and scientists and adventurers. So yeah, it's been the interest has been huge, which yeah, just really rewarding for myself. I mean, kids love this kind of stuff. I've been going around doing talks with schools. Kids love hearing about all the different ways of exploring. I mean, they know about scuba, but submarines and habitats are something, you know, a bit more foreign to them. So that's what it's all about for me: getting those young kids excited and getting them to actually be able to physically see and be part of these projects. And that's what Fabien's doing with the live part of his project too. They can tune in and really be part of that.
Most definitely. I would actually love to throw it over to Fabien. You've, you know, in this hangout and probably throughout your time preparing for Mission 31, and while you're down there, you've seen probably loads of awesome projects that are going on out there. I would love to hear your reaction and if you have any questions from the other members of the panel about the projects they're working on. So I'd love to throw it to you.
Well, thank you, Andrew. Actually, I have a couple of questions, or maybe more like a comment and a question. First of all, what Lloyd's doing is pretty fantastic. I would encourage him to get in touch with Tom because I think there may be some symbiosis there. With what you've learned, and certainly there's something there that could be highlighted with all your work and with all the knowledge and background of Aquarius. My dream, and I think it's everyone's dream that's ever been around a habitat, is to have a completely self-sufficient habitat. So whether it's using things like regenerative, environmentally friendly energy sources, as well as aquaponics, as well as reverse osmosis systems and so on and so forth. So you can be completely untethered from the surface would be phenomenal, and I think there may be something there for you all for sure. Of course, I know Megan's game to come and join at any given time because she's just a mermaid. But my question really is for Emily and Amber, and it's just a simple one. Have you ever had the chance to enjoy the beauty of the natural gas platform on one of the most beautiful coral reefs in the Gulf, which is Flower Garden Bank?
We have not yet, but we have a trip planned there for August, and we are so excited because we have heard so much about it, and we had a previous trip scheduled, but because of weather, we had to cancel it. But we've only heard good things, and it seems like it's a totally different ecosystem too. So we're very excited. It'd be nice to dive in some warm water too. Yeah.
Well, I noticed that in those pictures you were very well donned with wetsuits and hoods and everything else. So this might be very different and maybe welcome. I don't know if you like warm water. Maybe you like cold water. But in any event, it's a very different ecosystem and gorgeous.
Wow. That would be amazing.
Well, since we're starting to ask each other questions, I would love to remind people at home watching that you can always ask us the panel a question through the Google Hangout app. In fact, we have one right here from Ron Peters. Do you think that perhaps a program such as NASA, COTS, could work to stimulate manned undersea habitat research programs in the private sector? Lloyd, actually, I think I'm going to throw it to Tom on this. Oh, hold on a second. All right, go ahead.
Okay. Can you hear me now? There we go.
Yeah, totally can.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the future. This, this public-private collaboration, I think, is the wave of the future. A lot of what NASA is doing is sort of like a catalyst. What they do in Aquarius is they bring all this engineering technology, all these new tools that we ultimately end up spinning to use in marine science and education activities. But again, as we found out the hard way, I don't think anything happens in a vacuum. I think everybody is sort of kicking open the doors right now, and there's a lot of good people in a lot of different places. There's no reason that we can't have a public-private partnership to continue on with maybe not necessarily a NEMO, but a subset of NEMO.
That is an excellent response. I would love to see more public-private partnerships and other projects as well. Megan, I would love to hear your thoughts on bringing a larger portion of the outside world, especially those people who might not necessarily be oceanside, into the conversation. You're currently muted, sorry.
And now I'm unmuted. There we go. Fantastic. I think there's a 6-year-old inside a lot of people that wanted to be a marine biologist somewhere along the way, and some of us never outgrew that 6-year-old. But I think inside we need to rekindle that fire for our oceans. We hear a lot about how humans are destroying oceans and the bad things that we've done and how oceans have a human problem. But I think the way to spin that is also to know that oceans also have a human solution. In fact, we're the only thing that is going to be able to turn it around and make those positive changes. And so I think it starts near the coastlines. I think being able to physically see the ocean and then experience it for yourself is a very easy way to engage with kids. We're really thrilled here in Bermuda to be working with school groups, underprivileged groups who may live right by the beach. A lot of these kids that we're working with could throw a rock from their home into the water and yet have never put on a set of goggles and looked beneath the waves. And so it's extremely exciting for us to say, like, okay, who's snorkeled? And all the hands go up. Who knows about corals? And then all the hands go up. Who knows about fish? All the hands go up. And then you bop them in the water and you're like, we're going to start with floating. Floating is step one. But that enthusiasm is there, that desire to learn more, to go deeper, to see more, to experience more is there. And I think it's certainly about rekindling that blue heart. And if you are farther from the ocean, I'm a product of the desert. I grew up in the middle of the desert in Idaho, and so saltwater was a new thing for me later in my life. I think it's about staying curious and learning as much about the world as you can. Whether you live on a coast or off of a coast, you still need a healthy ocean for a healthy planet. It makes the air we breathe, it creates the food we eat, creates the weather that we all depend on, and so it's reconnecting with what's fascinating about the ocean. Fabien mentioned it, but whatever you're looking for in the ocean has. If you're looking for adventure, if you're looking for mystery, if you're looking for discovery and exploration, it's all there. And I think more and more with these great tools of films, of social media, we're starting to reach more people and get them hooked on the ocean as much as we're all hooked.
Most definitely. Again, for those of you watching at home, we tried this earlier, but it didn't quite work. You can actually watch the live feeds from Mission 31 from the Aquarius Reef base. Included in that, you can also watch, NOAA's live feeds. There's all these different feeds that you can keep a pulse on what's going on in the ocean, and it's easier every day for people at home who, again, don't necessarily live right by this ocean to participate in all these wonderful things. Megan, you actually touched on something that I would love to throw over to Amber and Emily, that humans are probably one of the only aspects of in the world that can actually undo the damage that we have done in the oceans. And your project is specifically looking at these invasive entities, these rigs that are pulling out oil, possibly doing damage, could hypothetically do damage, but these rigs are actually fostering life. Can you speak a little bit on that dichotomy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a pretty interesting story because it's very unexpected, and I think that's what drew us into it, is how exciting and sort of how unexpected it was. But just as Mission Aquarius has life and corals growing on it, so does any structure that you find in the water. And what we found in our research is that these platforms not only are attracting life, but also functioning as a source of production where fish can spawn and breed and grow to maturity, and that's important for the health of our offshore ecosystems and therefore important for the ocean. And just as Megan said, having a healthy ocean is what we are looking to do and what we're looking to communicate. So yeah, it's pretty interesting.
It sounds it. And again, I love seeing all the amazing imagery. We're starting to run out of time, and I'd love to allow our panel to have kind of final thoughts on this entire discussion on the importance of underwater work and actually working subsurface. Lloyd, I love your projects. I'm going to keep tabs on the new project working out with the underwater biosphere. I'd love for you to start off this final thoughts.
Well, yeah, just like to say best wishes to Fabien and his crew for the rest of the expedition, firstly. Secondly, yeah, I think there's a big future and a big use for underwater habitats. As Fabien mentioned also, there's also a lot of other tools that we can use to explore the ocean. Underwater habitats is just one of those. And something that Tom pointed out, which really stuck a chord with me, is that the use of all different disciplines in order to sort of keep that moving forward. I mean, I think it's really important to integrate artists, musicians, and all of other fields, bring them all together to sort of make that movement larger and gain momentum. And that's something that I'm trying to do with my projects, as well as integrate art and music, breaking down the barriers between disciplines and just opening up the field to a much larger audience. So I think I'll finish with that, but it's been great joining you all, and yeah, I'll pass it back to you, Andrew.
Thank you, and great for chatting out, and great for joining. Really happy to have you aboard, and again, really great to see all these fantastic projects. Since you mentioned Tom, I'd like to have Tom have the next final words.
Excellent. I think the parting shot is dare to dream. I mean, take all your preconceived notions on what has been done in the past, what is currently being done, and sort of cast them aside and really think big. Think outside the box. think how we can reach 1 million, 2 million, 20 million people. You know, we talk around here all the time. All it takes is 10 extremely passionate people to really affect change. Those 10 people infect 10 people, and it continues to move on. And again, it's the whole concept. Everybody here is an explorer in their own right. The ability to push the envelope and not to be afraid to fail. You know what? We're going to fail, but don't be afraid. You know, we always regret the things that we don't do, not the things we do. So I'm very excited about the future.
Wow, those are very inspiring words, and I have to say that, you know, definitely the Dare to Dream Big resonates great with me, and I know that it definitely resonates great with Megan. Who's going to have the next final words?
Thanks, Andrew. I think for me, it's just about using all of those tools. You know, we want everyone to become part of this blue movement. We all rely on this, and we're all on this planet together. And in order to keep that planet healthy, we need those healthy oceans, and that depends on every single one of us, young, old, near the coast, far away. And so it's about using every tool that we have, whether that be in habitat, deep ROVs, scuba diving tank on your back, or your own lungs, and just a mask, and going and checking out the world that's there. Use your Instagram feed if that's your first connection. Use your brain and just keep asking questions and stay curious about our world. I'm thrilled to be on here, and we're so happy to be taking more people into the ocean and inspiring that conservation ethic and that blue heart all around the world. And so thank you for having me and letting us share our little piece of the mission, and amazing work, everyone on the panel. I'm so happy to have you guys as colleagues and be in this together. We have a great challenge, but we have an amazing team, more, stronger, bigger every single day.
Most definitely. Amber and Emily?
Yeah, so same with Megan. I know I speak for both Amber and myself that we're thrilled to be here and have this opportunity to discuss this with you guys. And we would just encourage everybody out there to keep exploring and check out what's below the surface, because it's often very unexpected. And, you know, explore the ocean in your own backyard, whether that's going to a local aquarium or getting out into the tide pools or anything like that. Just always go below the surface and expect the unexpected.
And to wrap it up, man of the hour, Fabien, can you roll us out?
Well, there's not much left for me to say except that it's been an honor to be on this panel with all these intrepid explorers. Andrew, first of all, I want to thank you for making this possible. I love your wallpaper, and I think you should keep it forever. But on a more serious note, Tom said this earlier. It's not easy when you come up with a crazy out-of-the-box idea and try and convince people of the unorthodox. But as we've seen, I hope, and as we will continue to see for many years to come, that's the only way to be able to push the envelope and to go and make progress, especially since at the end of the day we are one species regardless of our background, and we all need to understand the oceans in a much deeper, more intimate way than we have thus far. And with the efforts of Megan, of Lloyd, of Tom, of Emily, and of Amber, and of course of you, Andrew, and many others out there, we're able to take that next step, not only in ocean exploration for exploration's sake, but also for mankind and the rights of future generations to come to enjoy what we've thus far taken for granted. So, like my grandfather said, if one person has a chance to lead an extraordinary life, he or she has no right to keep it for themselves. So by all means, share it with the rest of the world.
Well, I'm very glad that everybody on this panel was able to share their experiences and their projects with me, and again with the rest of the world as well. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for my excellent panel, and dare to dream big and keep connected to the ocean. Till next time, this has been the Online Ocean Symposium, and we'll see you in the big ocean wave.